So where did the Aboleth get the money?
What are you talking about? He enslaved that port town. He's been taking taxes for so long.
Okay. I was going to say Bitcoin, but that
He's just got the sweetest water-cooled rig.
yeah, I bought Bitcoin 15,000 years ago. It's really increased in price. But yeah, no, given how long they live, compound interest could make these guys very wealthy. It doesn't say that in the flavor text. I'm just kind of ad-libbing here, but...
Welcome to Monsters and Multiclass, your weekly Dungeons & Dragons fix. I'm Kevin Odie.
I'm Jared Bornagle.
And I'm Will Melden.
And we'll be hanging out with you for the next hour to talk about anything and everything D&D related. This week is the Bard Cleric Multiclass, and then later on we'll be looking at the Aboleth for the Monster of the Week from the Monster Manual. So pull up a chair and listen up.
All right, so our two classes this week are the Cleric and the Bard. So a Cleric is a full spellcaster, so is a Bard. Get their powers from very different sources. Clerics usually from gods of any type. Bards through the magic that is within us all. Is that not right?
No?
I think a Disney movie said something about the magic of music flowing through my soul. I can't remember, though.
Seems pretty close to me.
Sure.
All right, fine. Bards get it through, I guess, their attunement with music and what?
I think it's just charisma.
Just they're just really cool guys, so they get magic.
How do you not have this down yet? This is our third episode in a row on Bards.
Because I usually just forget everything we did last episode. And so that way everyone's like a clean slate.
Kevin, how do bards get magic?
It's through recognizing the power of spoken word and performance and how magic pervades everything. And then additionally, how they seek out lore and ancient stories and knowledge and be able to manipulate the world.
Jeez, I think mine summarized it just fine. The magic within us all.
All right.
So, first thoughts. You don't like the start, do you?
It's fine. And I'm laughing. First thoughts?
It's all right, I guess.
Yeah, I'm not really feeling the Clart.
The Clart? Are we combining their names now?
Yeah.
The Blaric.
The Clart.
Blaric and Clart, you vote. Which one do you like more?
That will become a Twitter poll when this episode comes out.
That'd actually be pretty good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Blaric or Clart?
So, no, but actually, let's talk. So, some first thoughts as to why do you not like it?
And just mechanically, there's nothing that excites me about it. You have two solid classes that do their thing well. If looking through, I was really looking for something that like combined super well together, and I just didn't get anything. It's sort of going back to one of those multi-classes where if you go like half and half, 10 and 10 or something, you're going to be a decent bard and a decent cleric, and you just kind of go back and forth about picking what you want to do. Which is fine. I'm not saying it's a bad multi-class. It just doesn't excite me. I'm not seeing these cool, unique combos or anything like that. I think you would, based on what's going on, you would be playing as a bard or playing as a cleric, essentially, mechanically, at least.
Right. And definitely the first issue that comes up for me is the fact that we've got two full spellcasters with different spellcasting abilities.
Right.
So whichever one you don't go very far into is probably not going to be your focus for your ability score increases, and your save's just going to be kind of crappy with half of your spell list.
Right.
That doesn't really work well for me. Will, any interesting first thoughts?
So, yeah, they're two divergent classes when you're multi-classing with them. One thing, by level 8, if you do get that in the Cleric, you do get Divine Strike with a lot of these things. As a melee bard, this could be beneficial to you. You know, you're doing 1d8 or 2d8 at level 14, which seems a little high in Cleric, but 1d8 on every attack is pretty good if you've got extra attack.
Yeah.
Which is, if you're looking for extra attack as a Cleric, that means you're probably multi-classing.
Right, but there's going to be so many better options to go down.
Cleric to a fighter or something, I think, comes to mind then. To a bard.
But if for some reason you're really... I think what it first comes to mind for me is this is a huge support class. So you've got a cleric who's already generally assumed to be a healer of sorts. It's not really the only way to play them at all. But a lot of times you're thinking of a cleric as a healer, and a lot of times you're thinking of a bard as just a general support class. So for that, you're getting very good aspects of both of them into one character. Giving bardic inspiration to a cleric is actually pretty good, because that's just something that they can do as a bonus action. And normally they use bonus actions for occasionally healing, occasionally the spirit weapon.
I'll actually say, in my experience, most recently playing a cleric, my bonus action was often spoken for.
Either from like spells that you're concentrating on,
The spiritual weapon, and for the healing word, which is generally the go-to as you approach higher levels. So that is one of those instances where this is definitely kind of a conflict.
That's fair, but I don't think bardic inspiration really takes so much away that one turn you're giving up your bonus action instead of doing a spirit weapon attack, you're giving a bardic inspiration die. Or if you're, well, this probably wouldn't be the best combination, but if you're going the College of Swords and a cleric, then you're using it on one of your blade flourishes. Which, does that even use your bonus action? Can you expend 2 uses of bardic inspiration in one turn?
I don't see why not.
Yeah, okay.
Bonus
so
action for
you're using
bardic inspiration. And yeah, the other one, it's not, the blade flourishes isn't using bardic inspiration. It's using your bardic inspiration die as a resource.
Correct.
To do a blade flourish.
So that would be perfectly fine. Yeah, those don't use a bonus action?
You can only use one blade flourish option per turn.
Correct, one
Right.
blade flourish option, but then you use your bardic inspiration for something else. You know, your normal uses of bardic inspiration.
How many do you get?
It's
Bardic
not too
inspiration?
many. It's your charisma
Charisma.
modifier, and they come back on a short or long rest once you get to level 6, I want to say.
That sounds about right.
Fifth.
5th, that's not bad. Yeah, font of inspiration. Beginning at 5th level, you regain all expended uses of bardic inspiration when you finish a short or long rest. So
Before that, it's just a long rest.
correct. So up to that point, yeah, I mean, you're going to be pretty hard pressed to be using 2 bardic inspirations in one turn. But if your charisma's high enough and you've got a +4, that means you've got 4 per short rest. I could see it happening. That's a very specific use of it, though. But do you really think that a cleric's bonus action is going to be spoken for to that extent, where using a bardic inspiration would take away a lot from that turn?
I think it's enough that it does dampen the utility, the obvious utility that anything benefits from bardic inspiration. It's a good thing to have.
Right.
But yeah, playing a cleric, I often find myself like wishing I had more actions because I have just an enormous amount of resources that I
Right.
would like to spend as quickly as possible. But there's only 2 avenues to do that, and that's bonus actions and actions.
Yeah, you've been playing a cleric for a while now, and I don't think we've ended a day with you out of spell slots.
No, we have broken the halfway point a couple of times now. It's kind of getting insane.
I blame Toll the Dead. That cantrip's too good.
It is a very good.
Like, why use a spell slot when you can toll? And you always got to have your healing available, even though you're very greedy with your healing.
Hey man, you haven't died yet.
So as a support class, which not many people want to play, this is not too bad of an avenue. It's just you're kind of, as mentioned
that's-
right out the gate, like you're just limiting both sides.
Yeah, it is meshing together. You kind of get best of both worlds and spells.
Right.
That was my one big benefit of kind of going even levels in both. You more option to spells because there's some really solid cleric only spells and some really solid, not so much bard only spells. There's
But just the ability to grab spells from anything.
or
what?
spells that clerics can't get
Okay, gotcha.
that bards can, and then there are some bard only ones. Just good battlefield control support things. So if you pick your spells wisely and kind of with a plan, I think you could make a decent support class. Or there is always the argument, I brought it up last episode when talking about bards, and I think it's always relevant for bards. A 3-level dip into bards gets you a lot.
Right, that too.
Yeah, where that's I had it written down. 6 bard spells, the additional slots that come with it. So they're both full casters. So basically, you don't lose out on your slots. You still
Right.
get your max number of slots. 2 cantrips: Bardic Inspiration, Jack of all trades, Expertise, and the first feature of your college that you pick. So that could be Cutting Words, or the Blade Flourishes, or whatever.
One of the things that I definitely don't like, and this just happens anytime you bring up the idea of going high into either side of a full spellcaster, is you are limiting the amount of high-level spell slots you have, which are when things can get really interesting. So, if you're saying only going up to 10, then you're really capping out at 5th level spells, which is high, but, if you never go past 10th level in either of these classes,
Right.
then you're not getting what really makes them great at high levels.
Yeah.
So
But
that's...
it does free up for some really cool upcasting. Upcast hold person.
Oh, yeah. I'm not saying there aren't things
So
you can
hold
do.
What? I don't even know how many that would be.
Enough. Hold person is a level 2 spell or level 3?
Pretty sure it's 3.
Okay, so that would be 3 things at 5th level.
Right. It's upcast all the way to 9.
Oh, you're saying... Okay. Oh, because you would still have
You would
those
still have the
spell
slots,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's right. Okay, so I mean that's good at least. And with Bard, you do get a lot of spells known, so it's not like you're going to feel entirely limited, but you just only get from that pool up to 5th level. I can't say that I know the Bard spell list and the Cleric spell list well enough to know exactly what you're missing out on for 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th level spells. I'm assuming some good stuff because that's high level spells. But it's not like you've got nothing to choose from in the lower levels there.
And it's kind of nice. The Cleric's one of those, I know all my spells. I just have to prepare them. So
Right.
You're not limited there.
How's the preparation work for Clerics? Is it just your level times 2 plus your wisdom modifier?
Something like that.
That sounds right. I think that's how it works for full spellcasters.
Wisdom modifier plus your Cleric level, actually.
Oh, that's it. Okay, so you're probably not going to have a huge font of those. Depending on the subclass you go into, or the domain that you go into for Clerics, though, you can get a lot of spells prepared that you'd really have if you went Cleric or Bard anyways. Like Life Cleric, which is really just a support class through and through. You get Bless, you get Cure Wounds as pretty early on always prepared spells.
Right.
And you're going to have those if you're a Cleric. I don't think Bards get Bless. No, they do not get Bless, but they get Cure Wounds. So these are ones that you're going to have anyways. So if you're going for that support, Life is always a good choice. I think Life and Lore would probably mesh pretty well.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Are there any other, well, not any other, but is College of Whispers a good avenue to go down if you are a bard looking to be mainly a spellcaster? Or do you think it's more of like still in that?
I think lore kind of just overshadows all of them.
It really does, because it's just pure, hey, here's all of the spells in the game.
Now, College of like its first thing is Psychic Blades, where it's kind of like
Melee attack.
Yeah.
Yep. So there's you mentioned the Cleric level 8 ability, where you get plus 1d8 for your weapon attacks. If you go College of Lore, you can pick one of those Cleric domains that gives you 1d8 to your cantrips as well.
Those are
Cleric
Cleric
cantrips.
Cleric cantrips specified?
It is.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to take your word for
Which isn't entirely bad. The Cleric's got some good cantrips. It's
it. Toll the Dead is one of them.
Yeah.
Toll of the Dead is arguably one of the best cantrips in the game. Everyone's always like, it's not Eldritch Blast. Well, nothing's Eldritch Blast. But if I had to pick, I'd say Cleric's like right behind it. With Toll of the Dead, anything a wizard can do, anything a bard can do. Firebolt, it's not a D12, man.
Nope. Yeah, Toll the Dead being a wisdom save, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
and
it
it's
is.
if they've been hits, it's a D12. Then a level 5, 2D12, and it scales like any other cantrip. So that's the only cantrip that's a D12.
Yep.
I think there's
Right?
a close range one.
Oh yeah, there is a touch one, I think.
Poison
Yeah.
Or acid spray or something, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, it's true.
It's
It's just-
too
yeah.
dangerous to justify itself. Whereas a cleric can sit in the back and just toll anybody who's been injured.
Right.
So, I mean,
and heal
that's
anyone who's
alright.
been injured on your side for healing word, or give some inspiration out. But it's like you both said at the start here, I'm not seeing many class features that I'm like, oh man, those two together is just totally worth all of this. Besides the general dipping into Bard is just good for 3 levels.
Right. And then I think there's plenty of art role-playing justification, though. That's why I would do this.
Yeah.
As if you had a character concept you wanted to realize. It's like, yeah, Bard, Cleric, it's not going to be terrible.
Right. You know what came to mind for me? A church youth pastor. Who brings a guitar and always plays songs about their god. But they mesh for role-playing wise actually super well.
Right.
Because you've got somebody who is usually a traveling bard going around telling stories, but now they are going around telling stories about their specific patron or god.
Exactly.
Not
yeah.
patron.
Yeah, spreading the word of
right. So
their god and stuff like that. Yeah.
that can work really well as long as your player is not obnoxious.
Right.
Because I think we had somebody who tried to play the spreading your god around character once before, and that did not work out super well.
No.
And that's kind of the inversion of the trope. As your paladins are charisma characters, but they almost kind of err on the side of being very obtuse. I think a lot of people generalize into an obtuse kind of paladin.
Right.
And this would be a good character to do really effective proselytizing of your religion, as opposed to the, hey, my God's the only God. Let me tell you why you're wrong every time you walk into a bar. That's not my favorite kind of roleplay.
No, whereas this, it's like you get into a bar and you play some songs about your God and hand out pamphlets if anybody asks or leaves tips.
Yeah, that is a fun roleplay potential. And yeah, like Kevin said, if you're looking to create a character, if you've got 2 features that you like out of Bard and like out of Cleric, chasing them's not going to kill you mechanically.
No, definitely not. So if you did do like a 3-level dip into Bard, you've got some Bardic inspiration. Honestly, I'd say if you went mostly into Cleric and then maybe up to 5 in a Bard, just to have the replenishing Bardic inspiration on a short rest, that's a pretty good mix for the most part. Just your biggest issue is any Bard spells you cast are going to have most likely a lower spell save and all of those things.
And this is only 2 dependent, right? Charisma and Wisdom.
Yeah.
Correct. Charisma and Wisdom.
Which, again, is not that hard to get both of them to start out with both of them at 16.
No.
Get a 14 con. And
where that does create some issues is if you are trying to also have a melee one. Because if you're doing melee, then you probably want Dex. And I mean, we've talked, having 3, it's not impossible to get, but when you're relying on all 3 of those to actually be effective, it can be a little more tough. Especially with Bard spells, where the spell save is extremely important.
Right.
You're usually doing it on groups of people, like Hypnotic Pattern is a really big Bard spell. You want everything to fail that. And if your DC is 13, it's not that impressive.
Clerics, it's worth noting, clerics are very save heavy.
Yeah. Pretty much all their cantrips are saves, like the damages and all that.
Right, and it's not the
Sacred Flame and Toll the Dead. Yeah.
Yep, and of those, it's not if they fail they still get some kind of bad effect like taking damage. It's like, no, they pass, so nothing happens. You wasted your spell. That's not fun. You don't obviously want to waste spell slots like that.
Yeah, I think that's the toughest pill to swallow in this combo.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you focus on one and then use, this is kind of getting too into the weeds, but like you're a bard, but instead of using Cure Wounds as a cleric spell, you use it as a bard spell. Okay, now you're probably not healing as much to an extent, but the save doesn't matter, so that's good. And you just use the spells that don't need a save in the one that has a lower one.
Right.
You keep that at 13, 14, whatever, as you get your important one to 20 and maybe worry about the other one later.
Mm-hmm.
If at all.
Right.
Did you think of anything besides a church youth pastor or somebody who goes around and spreads the good word of their God?
The lore bard and the flavor there about diving into ancient knowledge and ancient magics and stuff like that. You have a cleric who delves into all that to better serve their god. It's just... Like with knowledge would work really well, or the arcana domain.
Yeah. How does the knowledge domain, that's already like skill monkey-ish as well as the bards. Do those overlap in any positive way? Or, a lot of what the the knowledge domains thing is that if it's not proficient in something, it can just make itself proficient in that, right? As a channel divinity. So I feel like the jack of all trades becomes a little bit less important because of that.
Yeah.
Where that's helping out things that you're not proficient in.
True.
That does actually have a negative overlap, but at the same time, that's full versus half proficiency. So
right. I mean, it's at lower levels, it's totally not a big deal. Once you get to that proficiency bonus of +6, then yeah, I mean, that's pretty nice to have.
Yeah.
+6 instead of +3.
Mechanically, the knowledge domain doesn't really excite me. I was just talking kind of flavor-wise.
Right. Yeah, that's totally fair.
Arcana domain, though, is cool. I like that one a lot. First of all, they get some cool spells. Detect magic, magic missiles.
Ooh, that's good.
Dispel magic, magic circle. Arcane initiates. Yeah, you could get 2 cantrips of your choice from the wizard spell list.
See, that one, well, I guess that's not bad. I just can't think of any particular cantrips off the wizard spell list that are particularly good.
Cantrips.
I guess.
Where?
Well, actually, clerics don't get mage hand.
I don't think so.
So that one's good. I just think, we just talked about how clerics have really good damage dealing cantrips. They've got Firebolt or Sacred Flame, Sacred Flame and Toll the Dead. So
that's going to be a lesser thing, I think, because there are plenty of ways to get cantrips. Yeah. But
then the Arcana domain's channel divinity, it's essentially turn dead for non-undead. It's for celestial, elemental, fae, or fiends. And it's the same exact thing.
Yeah, it just spreads it out.
Yeah, and then so you have to pick which one this is targeting. So if you happen to be in a room with all of them, that'd be a weird encounter, but you would just have to pick one. Where, you present your holy symbol, they have to make a save. If they fail it, they're turned for a minute, and they have to spend their turns dashing away from you and stuff like that.
Yeah, but at 5th level, it gets amazing.
Look at the table, bud.
Yeah, the arcane banishment. Yeah.
Okay, well, all right.
So it's the exact same thing as with turn undead, where then you get destroy undead, where if you are 5th level and you successfully turn a challenger in 1/2 or lower undead, it just dies.
It's just more flavor-wise then, isn't it? It's just banishing them instead of killing them outright.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's not as fun.
But it's celestial, elemental, fae, or fiends are usually not of the plane you're fighting them on.
Right. So that's true.
And if you hold that up to a minute, they're just gone. Which was used to my chagrin last time we played.
It's worth noting this one is not concentration.
Yeah, that's important.
So that's kind of a huge.
The other one, turn undead, is.
No, turn undead's not, but they just instantly die right away. This is saying it's.
Oh, you mean if you banish them? Yeah,
correct. If you banish them, I mean, it gets pretty good. Kind of a free banishment on a challenge rating 3 or lower at 14th level isn't too amazing, but it's not bad. I mean,
one actually does kind of like it being a single target thing. Like turn undead, when you're level 17 and it's nuking 4 or lowers, it doesn't seem that great until you're like, oh, there's an army of zombies, and you're like, now there's not an army of zombies.
Right, but there's no other situation that you can throw an army of zombies at your characters unless you have a cleric or a paladin.
Yeah, if you have a high-level cleric, you're just baiting the DM into like, oh, now there's 100,000 zombies. Because they just so effective at getting rid of them.
Right, and that's almost one of my issues with their channel divinity in general. Is I feel like it's really useful, but as a DM, you're not going to be throwing those at them and expecting it to be a huge challenge. It's really just baiting them to use their channel divinity, because if they have it for something else, then I don't know, you don't want them to use it on that. Like, for example, the paladin channel divinity of being able to make their weapon magical. It's got a plus whatever to whatever their charisma is. If you're like, okay, that's going to be really strong. That one's not super strong, but that's going to be really strong in one of these encounters. So beforehand, I'm going to throw a army of zombies at them to force them to use their turn undead. And that's getting to that point where it becomes less about a challenge and more about like just over DMing, I guess is the phrase I'm going to use. Yeah, I'm going to stick with that.
Right.
No, I get it.
It also becomes less of an issue if you're running a pre-written adventure or campaign.
True.
That's already in there for you, and if they happen to line up, then great, they kind of solved that challenge. I'm sure there will be other ones where they are not well equipped for it.
Right. I don't think I've come across a a pre-written campaign that's like, here's 20 zombies.
Right.
But it's still like, oh, there's 3 or 4. Cool.
Right.
This encounter's really easy for them. And you know, that's just a win. You know, you don't get mad about that as a DM. It's just like, all right, cool. You got through this one really easy. Next.
Right.
The Bard and Death domain. Trying to think how those might overlap. Basically, a Grim Reaper just goes around killing people. No, don't like that. Don't like that at all.
Do they have clowns at funerals? I'm the funeral clown. Why are you adventuring? I couldn't find much work.
But that could be a fun character to play.
Tell me about some of the character flaws of your late father. Get out of this establishment immediately.
Guess you could make that a thing in your world.
Clowns at funerals.
Yeah, that's just like one of the...
That's fine. That's totally fine.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, where I'm from, everybody has a clown at their funeral, and I'm the best. So I went out trying to spread the fact that there should be more clowns at funerals.
Right, and the rest of the world's not having it. Yeah.
Right. But it's up to them now to make the world a more joyous place, because death should be celebrated, not resented, and a morbid time. It's just a new stage of life. I think that's more grave domain than death. I actually don't know. Death is just like the...
Yeah, I kind of hate how both of those exist.
But they're very different. Death is like things should be dead, whereas grave is like more about bringing things back and choosing when's the right time to die. I guess they do overlap. That's fair.
Is death the one that was thrown in with the DMG, was it not?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's kind of like
It's
the
a more
evil
evil
cleric,
one, yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Or-
The idea was not for player characters to use it, but it was built in a way where you could if you wanted.
Right. But
So grave is a lot more sane.
Yeah, so
It's like, oh, you
gods
should
of
be
the
buried.
death domain also embody murder, pain, disease, poison in the underworld.
right.
What are your hobbies? Murder, pain, disease in the underworld. You know, the
Okay.
huge.
And then the grave domain, gods of the grave, watch over the line between life and death.
Yes.
Got it.
So
Okay.
there is a difference. I didn't explain it
Yeah.
well, but I think that's the main one. You don't have to be evil to be the grave domain.
No.
Or death domain, you're probably pretty sick in the head and really enjoy child leather or whatever. So weird.
That was a different episode. We might have people here who would not listen to that one.
Oh, yeah, fair. Disclaimer, last episode, the Annis Hag steals children and turns them into leather. So,
Yeah.
yeah, listen to that one if you're...
Into child leather.
So I think you've got a lot of options flavor-wise, though, just because clerics offer so many different domains. And most of them, as we said, they're not bad. There's nothing great out of any of them, but none of them really make me turn up my nose.
Yeah. Yeah, in terms of what to pick, it comes down to what flavor you want. I think I've said this before whenever we had a cleric multi-class. There's so many options here.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, what flavor do you want?
Blueberry. Is there a blueberry cleric?
Nature domain.
What?
Bingo.
Ugh, close enough. But I was really looking for that artificial blueberry flavor.
Arcana domain.
Better.
Yeah, no, this gets the same kind of verdict I got from the Bard Ranger. It's go for it if there's something you want, I guess, but I'm not seeing a really
Compelling argument.
there's no standout combo here.
All right.
Yeah.
That's all I got.
Make sure
then.
you, like, if you're a melee, one of the melee bard subclasses, pick one of the subdomains that give you the divine strike. And if you're the castery subclass, get the ones where it's the potent spell casting.
Yeah, and then make sure you're
I
using
guess
your...
that's the extent of our advice for this.
What incredible insight.
Yeah.
really breaking new ground here.
Oh,
guys.
yeah. Other than that, just do what you want. It'll probably work out fine. They're both solid classes.
But once again, go more into one than the other. I don't personally think going into...
I think it just about any
I
combination
don't think
will
it
work.
matters
Yeah,
at
it just
all.
doesn't.
all right,
It's just,
all right. That's fine.
yeah. Go into more than one. It all comes down to character concept.
Yep.
I would call this a
Versatile.
character concept multi-class.
There you go.
If you have a role-playing idea, a mechanical idea, you're like kind of swapping between these things, well, sure. Go ahead
good
and
with
do it. Kind of do it however you want. I don't see any traps. I don't see any amazing
Did you check for
things.
traps?
Crap.
Roll perception.
I don't have dice out.
Ah, crap. Well, you rolled a 0. So,
Oh.
yeah, there was a trap.
We go
I'm now in a pit trap.
Find traps, the greatest spell ever made.
All right. Anything else? Nope. Usual
Self-promotion
time.
Follow us on Twitter at monsters_multi. We get previews of what's coming up. We interact with people and give us suggestions of things you want us to cover, or if you think we missed something, want to discuss anything like that. It's cool stuff. Also, review us anywhere we can. Apparently, that's real big for podcasts. Just kind of getting the name out there, and like on Apple Podcasts, iTunes, stuff like that. Having reviews. So go ahead and review us. We'd appreciate it. I think that's enough of that.
That is. All right, on to our monster of the week.
This week's monster is the Aboleth, a D&D classic that is a little bit more obscure than Dragons, I think. It's brought to us by It's Puzz on Twitter. So remember, if you have a suggestion, we will be subjected to your whims. Just bother us at Monsters and Multiclass.
It's true. I make them do this against their will every time.
So the Aboleth is a horrifying tadpole monster. Interestingly enough, this is a primordial creature. It once stalked the depths of the primordial oceans before the gods even arrived. But like the first fish to walk out of the sea, he quickly learned that just because you're the first doesn't make you the best. The god showed up, reminded him he is just kind of a horrifying tadpole, and their eternal lives and memories have never let them forget that. They generally live in obscure lakes underground somewhere, ruling over weird tribes and just kind of plotting back revenge against, I guess, every single god. Not the wisest plan, in my opinion, but it does make for an interestingly delusional enemy. So what do you guys think about the Aboleth?
I've actually never heard of an Aboleth before this conversation and before looking into it. I am upset that I haven't, because they've got some really fun abilities for a medium challenge rating, about 10.
I don't know if fun's the word I would use. Challenging, interesting.
I guess I'm thinking of it from a DM side,
yeah.
where it's like it'd be really fun to mess with my PCs with this thing. I mean, right off the bat, it's just a really big damage dealer. It's got legendary actions, which we really haven't talked about many monsters that have legendary actions, but are fantastic in fights that are supposed to be against single creatures. It helps with the action economy, which is heavily skewed towards player characters in situations like that against single enemies. And overall, just the lore is extremely awesome. So I guess, well, I'll let you talk first, Kevin, on any first thoughts.
That's not how we do monsters.
We're switching up the format. We're always dynamic here at Monsters and Multiclass.
I like the Aboleth. I've known of them. It's one of those monsters I would be reluctant to throw at a party, just because it could completely end things. It has the ability to like enslave and things like that, and it has a really nasty poison ability where if it's not handled, it's pretty detrimental to the character.
What's that? It's mucus cloud you're talking about, or
no? If
different one?
It's normal attacks. It makes 3 tentacle attacks.
Oh, right.
And if you get hit by it, you need to make on a DC 14 con save or become diseased. Not poison, disease. I was wrong about that.
Yep.
The disease has no effect for 1 minute and can be removed by magic that cures diseases. After the minute, the diseased creature's skin becomes translucent and slimy. The creature can't regain hit points unless it's underwater, and the disease can be removed only by heal or another disease-curing spell 6th level or higher. So when you're facing challenge rating 10, you're not going to have access to stuff like that.
Yeah.
When the creature's outside of a body of water, it takes 1d12 acid damage every 10 minutes, unless moisture is applied to the skin before 10 minutes has passed.
Now, does that sound like something that's too hard to get around? Like, let's say you fight this thing, you kill it. Well, actually, before I even get into that, where would you fight this thing normally? So we're talking about like in lakes and things of that
Generally
nature?
underground, isolated place. This is kind of like a living fossil style creature, where it lives only in the most obscure kind of locations.
Yeah, the depths of the ocean, within flooded ancient ruins, or very much in the Underdark.
Okay. So first off, your chance of fighting this thing is extremely low. You have to have a very specific reason, it sounds like, to seek this thing out. But are you going to be fighting it in water, or is this going to be dry land, just like in the ocean depths, and there just happens to be a cavern there that is...
This is an underwater fight. They are
Okay.
predominantly going to be an underwater monster. They have a 10-foot regular speed,
Right.
and then a 40-foot swim speed. It's pretty obvious what the intent there is. Their mucus cloud is another feature that they have, where they can essentially throw a cloud of mucus and disease creatures. And once again, it's kind of
While underwater.
It's,
That is it.
Yeah. One of the weird things about this, a lot of its negative effects seem to be pulling you towards this watery grave of, now I have to be a fish.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like, is every 10 minutes moistening yourself, is that going to be tough? Yeah.
It's
What are
definitely
you going to
be-
do for sleep?
Oh, that's a good point. I know it sounds dumb not to have thought of, but I was thinking like just in general, you can just, while walking, like, I dump water on myself. For a limited amount of time, it's not that terrible. Like, walking back from killing this thing, you're probably going to be fine. But that's going to be the first hurdle. It's like, I need to sleep. I need to go find a bath that I can sleep in.
Just carry like a barrel of water around with you, you know? You
Just
sleep in a barrel now?
roll it around. So yeah, I guess at level 10, you have access to 5th level spells, not yet 6th.
I think, yeah.
Yeah, so it is going to be either extremely expensive to get rid of this, or just its own quest line and all of these things. You might be dealing with that for a
Right.
good amount of time.
Yeah. So yeah, the Aboleth, its main thing, it likes to try and enslave people, bend them to its will. And so that's kind of what Will's saying, why it seems to be pulling them into the water. It's to do exactly that, to make them their minions, their slaves. It's Mucus Cloud. It's just an always-on ability. If you are within 5 feet of it, if you touch the creature or make a melee attack when you're in 5 feet, it applies. You have to make a DC 14 con save. On a failure, then you can only breathe water for 1d4 hours.
Right. Yeah, which...
And then it's also always on ability, probing telepathy. Yeah, why can't I say that word?
probing telepathy.
Telepathy, thank you. If a creature communicates telepathically with the Aboleth learns the creature's greatest desires if they could see the creature. And of course, the Aboleth has a 120-foot range for telepathy.
Right. I mean, that's definitely good from a flavor standpoint.
Yeah.
Of
And
course.
not like in a battle, but it's coming back to trying to bring people in and manipulate them and enslave them. They're very much one of those type of monsters. That's what they did. They ruled, as Will said in his intro, these things, they're basically immortal. These things existed before the gods even did, and they were the rulers of the material plane.
Mm-hmm.
And also the elemental plane of water. That's where they originate from. Because they enslaved people. They could read their thoughts, offer them their greatest desires, or just take direct control over them. They have the enslave ability.
Mm-hmm.
They were treated as gods. They made people worship them and bring them stuff. Then the gods came about and put a stop to that right quick because they're the gods and no problems doing so. But they didn't kill them all. They're immortal, so they still exist longing for those days.
What I think is really interesting is even if you do kill them, they're not really dead in the way that we understand death.
Right.
They get sent back to the primordial water plane and are basically reincarnated with all of their memories. They also have all the memories of anything it's either touched or killed. I want to say touched. But they're basically continuously accruing memories
Right.
and knowledge and everything and just live forever. So
Right.
they are like all-knowing in a very interesting way.
Right. It's another one of those monsters where it's really fascinating to kind of read about, but I think it'd be very hard to roleplay them.
Yeah.
They've been around forever, essentially. And they absorb all these other memories and then they die and just come back. And it's just, they have perfect memory as well.
Right.
That it makes a point to lay that out where 100% perfect memory about anything that has ever happened to them.
One thing that's kind of funny is it's got skills, and one of those is history plus 12. I couldn't imagine being like, no, it doesn't know that. It doesn't recall that. Like, it just, it knows
Right.
it. It's fine.
Yeah.
That one's not going to be a check.
Yeah. It also has layer actions.
Yeah, the layer actions are pretty fun. Gets a free phantasmal force.
Yeah, and I love the flavor implications of that because later on, and somewhere in the fluff, it's talking about so they learn creatures' greatest desires, and they will offer it to them. And if they are in their lair, since they can manipulate senses and stuff to essentially trick these creatures into believing they've obtained their greatest desires. And then I think Phantasmal Force is their mechanical way of going about it. Phantasmal Force being a spell where if you cast on someone, they have to succeed on a saving throw. If they don't, you pick an image that, like some sort of illusion that only that creature sees, and they are 100% convinced it is real. Even if they interact with it and move through it or whatever, they justify it in some sort of way. So I kind of see that as if someone's greatest desire is to have their dead wife back.
Yep.
They do whatever they said. They're in this layer. Then they use Phantasmal Force over and over and over on this creature to have their wife there.
Yeah, that can be really messed up. I think what this could be a good flavor thing to not actually have them fight the Aboleth, maybe fighting through, this is getting a little bit more meta because the mechanics don't work for this, but having them like fight through these illusions basically could be an interesting way to flavor the Aboleth. Where again, this is taking it less out of the mechanics. You don't say, oh, you have to make a DC 14 Constitution save, but you like have them basically roped into a lake. They get pulled down to the depths. They're searching for something because something is calling to them and telling them to. And then when they get there, they get whatever that great desire is, and you can work something through to have them need to fight that or figure out that it's all an illusion. Things of that nature could be a very story-based thing.
Right, yeah.
Less than it would be like a fight of any sort.
Yeah, so yeah, you'd have to kind of fudge the mechanics out.
Definitely. But you'd have to throw them out.
Yeah.
Throw them out.
Yeah. But that's fine. We do that stuff.
Yeah.
It also has regional effects, so within a area around its layer. I always like regional effects. It's just flavorful. It usually doesn't impact much of combat. But,
No.
All what is it? Any underground surfaces within is slimy and wet, and they're all difficult terrain. Water sources within 1 mile are supernaturally fouled, and if anybody drinks from them, they vomit it within minutes. And then also within 1 mile of its later, the Aboleth can create an illusionary image of itself and use that, and they could see through it and use it to communicate with individuals and creatures around there, but it's just an illusion.
Yeah, that one's really cool.
Yeah.
I think you could just come up with a bunch of flavorful reasons to use that.
Yeah. Yeah, and then if you already talked about what happens when it dies, right? How
it just reincarnates.
Yeah.
I mean, it might not be in the exact same spot.
In the elemental plane of water.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Other layer actions, it can just control pools of water within 90 feet of it, and it can...
What you could use to suck you in.
Yep, sucks you in, succeed on a DC 14 strength saving throw, or be pulled up to 20 feet into the water and knocked prone. That's definitely cool. What's this last one here? They take this one's really silly, in my opinion. The last one, they basically, you do a wisdom saving throw or take 2d6 psychic damage.
If you're within water.
Right. Compared to
it.
everything else, that one is kind of
Pretty
lackluster, but it can make it just a harder fight in its layer. If it doesn't have anything else, it's doing 2d6 psychic damage unless you're very wise. In general, it has its Psychic Drain, which is one of its legendary actions, and that one's scary because it's psychic damage, 3d6 psychic damage as a legendary action, and it regains hit points equal to the damage the creature takes.
Yeah.
So one thing to know with that is going to be interrupting its own enslave.
You're right. That's actually the fun of it, in my opinion, because the enslave is extremely powerful. Enslave, they make a DC 14 wisdom saving throw, or they're charmed. They are basically under its control, and so it is kind of using the things it's enslaved as batteries to recharge itself.
Right. Yeah. Psychic Drain, it has to be on a creature that's charmed.
Correct.
Right?
Yep. So, even if you are charmed by this thing. It takes you out of the fight for a little bit, but it gives you a really good way to get back out of it once it's starting to get up against the ropes a little.
Yeah, it's saying with Enslave, whenever you take damage, you get to reroll your save.
Yep.
And then if you pass, is that you're immune for 24 hours or no, nothing like that? Oh, yeah. It does.
Yeah,
Okay.
no more than once every 24 hours. So you're not immune forever, just for the next 24 hours.
No, that's something else. That's saying another way you can make the save. No more than once every 24 hours, the target can also repeat the saving throw when it is at least 1 mile away from the Aboleth.
And that's the scary part of it. Once you are enslaved, and this is a non-combat thing, to be honest,
Right.
you're kind of the Aboleth's plaything.
Right.
So you could do weird stuff with party members. You could do weird stuff with companions. If you have companions in your campaign, the Aboleth can like stealthily enslave them one by one over like the course of days in this particular region.
Right.
So that's one way to make it psychic, psychological adventure.
Yeah. I think that really sounds like the more overall fun way to run this, or at least more interesting, is like the psychological adventure. An all-out fight is definitely going to be tough, and there's just some ways that, as you said, it can just be like an insta-wipe, basically. Because if everybody got enslaved...
Well, no, it's not a wipe. You're just now on the Aboleth side.
Yeah.
Time for an Aboleth campaign. Which is, I think that's one of my favorite parts of the flavor of this. A lot of flavor text is very grandiose and non-mechanical. This one, I don't think you could get more grandiose. These are basically giant, oversized tadpoles, challenge rating 10, so threatening, but not the worst, whose only real goal is to overthrow the gods. Not a god, not a few gods. The entire pantheon has to go. And these guys like live in a lake. It's basically, it's mind-bending to think that they still think they have a chance. But, they spend tens of thousands of years plotting this. And I can't see them having made any material progress on the entire front.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what way they would, besides trying to just enslave large populations.
Yeah, exactly. If you enslaved all the believers of a certain god, that's, in a way, defeat.
Yeah, honestly, that's a really good way to do it. You just enslave everyone in the world. I say really good way to do it. That's a... I don't know if I really believe that.
How would that happen?
Exactly. This is a just ridiculous idea.
Ooh, they enslave people nearby to wherever they are. They come up to the surface, enslave a port town, enslave the entire area, and then convince them to then begin digging really deep moats throughout all of the land so that it can travel throughout the land, and it continues to enslave other towns until there's no one left.
Right. Well, then it's going to be a mile away from people, and then they get to try and break the save. And...
So, all right.
Man, I can't believe that plan didn't work.
You know what combines very well with Aboleths?
Mind flayers?
Koatoa.
Oh, yeah.
I agree.
Delusional fish people. So delusional, they create their own gods. Now we've got a god, so they don't have to...
But they can give it more
manifest
power.
And then they can make this Aboleth into an Ultra Aboleth. Exactly.
Right. So that Ultra Aboleth ignores the 1 mile.
And suddenly it's a Koatoa revolution. I think this is a fun Koatoa boss if you wanted one.
Oh,
yeah,
I could see that.
For sure.
I could definitely see that. That's a great way to introduce it, actually.
Yeah. I could also see it teaming up with the, I should have remembered this name before I started the sentence. We talked about him on here. The kind of weird spider.
Nagpa.
No. Weird spider eel monsters.
The slavers.
Not Neogis?
Neogis.
No, that is it. Yeah.
It's Neogis?
Neogis,
Okay.
yeah. They're interdimensional slavers. And they also have an enslavability. It's almost written exactly the same.
Oh, yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, my
an
only
extent.
issue is that they never
Terrain.
really seemed that inclined towards worship.
No, not worship. Worked with them.
I know, but this creature really does want to be worshipped. That's
True.
the kind of flavor thing.
Well, he uses the Neogis to go out and enslave people, bring them to him so that he can enslave it.
Yeah, I used to be a god, but I can't get new followers anymore, so I just buy them.
Yeah.
All right.
It's weird. I'm not arguing that, but we're trying to figure out ways to make it make sense.
So where'd the Aboleth get the money?
What are you talking about? He enslaved that port town. He's been taking taxes for so long.
Okay. I was going to say Bitcoin, but that was...
He's just got the sweetest water-cooled rig.
Yeah, I bought Bitcoin 15,000 years ago. It's really increased in price. But yeah, no, given how long they live, compound interest could make these guys very wealthy. It doesn't say that in the flavor text. I'm just kind of ad-libbing here, but they invested 5 gold when they first came around. They'd be worth, I don't know what, 500 trillion.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions to ask that aren't worth asking to get to that 5 trillion.
Yeah, I think they're interesting. They are intelligent. They are very intelligent creatures. Right. Strong, intelligent, wise, charismatic too, which is interesting because when you first see this thing, it's like 3 eyes stacked on top of each other and like this weird razor sucker mouth. They don't have any kind of limbs that they could use to write letters or shake your hand. They're just kind of like a weird, horrifying, malformed octopus of sorts. But they're very, very wise, charismatic, and long-lived. So it's kind of, it's a weird dichotomy.
I feel like you're trying to misunderstand what charisma is, but I'll let it slide. It's got a very large presence.
Yeah.
If it walks into a room, you're going to notice the Aboleth.
Oh, hey guys, I'm sorry about the mucus cloud. Dude, seriously? Can you turn that off? No.
No, and now you love it.
Just fill my house with water, fam.
All right. Anything else about the Aboleth?
Don't think so.
No, it's a fun enemy. And this does date back to much earlier editions, but I think it's one of those underutilized ones.
Have either of you ever faced an Aboleth?
Nope.
No.
Okay, me either. So I'll put it on the arena list. It wouldn't be that fun in an arena fight.
Too low for that.
Yeah, that's fine. All right. Well, thanks for listening.
Thanks.
We'll say
Thumbs
thank
up
you.
all around.
Say thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Everyone appreciate our thumbs up that we're giving you.
Yeah, we're giving you thumbs up.
Yeah.
Thumbs up emojis. Ugh.
Next week on Monsters and Multiclass.
Join us next week as we discuss the Cleric Monk multiclass and the La Crota from Volo's Guide to Monsters.